Hi guys, I'm Joe, and this is the Horrible Business Owner channel. So today we're going to talk about staffing being the second deadly sin of small businesses. The reason it's the second deadly sin is that because whether you overstaff or understaff, there's penalties both directions. We're going to start the conversation with understaffing. When you first start your small business, you're going to be trying to keep the costs down. You got bills to pay, and you're going to look at staffing as one of your biggest expenses, because it's going to be. Now every consumer is going to make a decision as to whether they want to wait in a line or not when they're coming to your shop to buy something. And they're going to look at that line, and at some point, the consumer just decides that line is too long and they're not going to do it. That line in the sand is where it would have paid you to have another employee there so that you can keep the line moving and get additional sales. That employee that cost you $10 an hour could be costing you $100 an hour in sales because the line's just too long. The other side of this argument is overstaffing, and this is much easier to understand. The average small business startup keeps about 6% of every dollar that comes in the door. So if you sell $100,000 worth of product, you keep about $6,000. If you overstaff, you quickly eat into that profit margin. There's things you have to identify in order to figure out how much staff you can afford. First, let's talk about federal minimum wage, $7.25 an hour. That is what the employee makes. That is not what the employee costs. There's fringe involved with minimum wage employees. There's actually fringe involved with all employees. But an employee that makes $7.25 an hour, on average, is going to cost a business about $9 an hour. You have unemployment. You've got workman's comp. All of these extra expenses go into the expense of the employee. The employee never sees that, but you see the cost. So now we know a minimum wage employee costs $9 an hour. What do we do with that information? Well, we put that into a calculation. If I have 5 employees working, they're costing $45 an hour. That means that I have to have $150 an hour in sales in order to cover the expenses at the normal 30% cost of labor. If I'm not making $150 an hour in sales, I've got to pull that profit from somewhere else, which means down the road, I better have a bang an hour. The next thing you have to do is identify, what do you expect from your team? If you expect them to sell $100 an hour per person before they have to call for help, then if you have 2 people working, they should be averaging $200 an hour in sales or less. And if the sales go up to $300 an hour, then you should be expecting to bring in additional teammates. So you need to track your sales by hour. It's going to tell you about how many people you have to bring in each day. So you're going to average it for Monday, you're going to average it for Tuesday. You may find out that between 3 and 6, you don't need a whole lot of teammates. You've got 2 working. But between 6 and 9, you're super busy and you need 4 teammates working. All right, guys, I hope you found that helpful as far as understanding why having too many employees or having too few is really bad for you and why you need to find the sweet spot. Next week, we're going to talk about capitalization and why it's important.